So I want you to try something real quick. Just close your eyes for a second and put yourself in a very specific room.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah. So it is November 2025. You are standing inside the Fiena Forum in Miami Beach, and you're at the Golden Vines Awards Gala.
Which, if you aren't familiar with that world, is basically like the Oscars, but for the absolute pinnacle of fine wine.
Exactly. I mean, the lights go down, and on stage, there are these dancers in sleek black bodysuits wearing these massive, wide-brimmed hats, just moving perfectly in sync.
Right.
Every single detail around you just radiates extreme wealth,
Yeah.
exclusivity, and a very deliberate kind of luxury.
There really is a space designed with that velvet rope mentality. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't have the right pedigree or, the right connections or obviously the right bank account, you simply do not get past the door.
Which is exactly what makes the contrast I want you to picture next so jarring.
Oh, yeah.
Because hold on to that glamorous Miami image, but simultaneously, I want you to picture the gritty, everyday reality of a council house in Manchester. And then picture the jarring sound of air raid sirens wailing in the background of a Zoom call in Kyiv.
Wow.
And finally, picture the breathtaking, completely uncultivated, remote elevations of the Himalayas in Bhutan.
I mean, those are environments that seem entirely divorced from the world of luxury wine.
Completely.
You wouldn't naturally connect, like, a Michelin-star dining room in Miami with a war zone, right? Or a Himalayan mountainside.
But our mission in this deep dive is to really explore the fact that these worlds are actually colliding right now.
Yeah, they really are.
We're going to examine how the legacy of one completely extraordinary man is taking this famously closed-door, heavily gate-kept industry and just dismantling its barriers from the inside out.
And we're using a really phenomenal piece of analysis as our roadmap for this today. We're looking at a recent article by Lilian Raji.
Yes, from her Forbes column, The Pursuit of Luxury.
Exactly. And her perspective here is what makes this so compelling, I think. We aren't just looking at a standard human interest story. We are looking at the actual mechanics of legacy.
Right, and to understand her lens, it really helps to know a bit about her background. Because Lilian is a global luxury communications advisor and a fractional CMO.
Yeah, she's the president of the Lilian Raji agency.
Right, where for over 2 decades, she has been the strategic brain behind some of the world's leading luxury brands.
And she also founded the PR advisor, right?
Yes, which actually grew out of a column she wrote for 10 years in National Jeweler magazine. She provides communications and PR training for emerging to mid-sized brands there.
So when she looks at a story like this, she's really examining how luxury brands use emotional marketing to capture these deeply passionate customers.
Exactly. And how leadership actually operates in these high-stakes environments.
Yeah.
So whether you are currently, navigating a C-suite or trying to break into an exclusive industry, or even just sitting in your car wondering how to leave a lasting mark on the people around you, Lilian's insights provide a literal masterclass.
They really do. But to understand the change happening in this industry, we first have to look at the catalyst, right?
Right.
We have to talk about Gérard Basset.
Yes. And the irony of Gérard Basset is that if Hollywood were casting the ultimate elite wine insider, they would reject his actual life story.
Right. It's almost too unbelievable.
It really is. I mean, he completely defied the standard narrative of inherited privilege. He didn't grow up strolling through family vineyards in Bordeaux.
No, not at all. He left high school with 0 formal qualifications.
Wait, none?
None. He tried to be a professional cyclist and washed out. He tried to play professional football, and, well, that didn't work either.
So he just stumbled into hospitality.
Essentially, yeah. He took odd jobs just to pay the bills. But from that totally chaotic starting point, he built a resume that literally no one else in history has ever replicated.
It's wild. He remains the only person to ever simultaneously hold 3 of the most grueling titles in the industry, right?
Yep. Master Sommelier, Master of Wine, and World's Best Sommelier.
Which, just for anyone outside the industry, obtaining just one of those titles requires a level of obsessive, all-consuming dedication that breaks most people.
Oh, absolutely.
Earning all 3 is like winning the Super Bowl, the World Series, and an Olympic gold medal at the exact same time. It's an absurd level of mastery.
It is. But here is where Lilian's analysis really shifts the focus. She points out that Gérard's true mastery wasn't actually about, like, blind tasting a vintage Bordeaux or memorizing soil compositions.
Yeah, right.
His mastery was his methodology with people. Because he started with nothing and he had to rely on the kindness of others to learn the trade. He turned mentorship into a daily practice.
I love that. He was constantly scanning the room for raw talent that lacked privilege, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he would quietly pull those people up the ladder with him.
And that quiet interpersonal habit is really what triggered the creation of the Gérard Basset Foundation.
Yeah.
And the origin of this foundation is just incredibly poignant. Like, Gérard didn't sit down and draft some massive corporate blueprint for a global charity.
No, he was actually dying of cancer at the time.
Right, and he didn't even know a foundation was going to be named in his honor.
His son, Rowan, and his wife, Nina, they just wanted to create a small, UK-focused initiative.
Just to honor him.
Right. Their entire goal was simply to reassure him, at the end of his life, that his dedication to mentoring people had mattered. They just wanted to show him his impact.
But then his friend, Lewis Chester, who co-founded the Liquid Icons company with Gérard, he looked at that idea and essentially said, we have to think bigger.
Yeah, he was like, Gerard's impact wasn't small, so this shouldn't be either.
So they organized the first Golden Vines auction in London, and it raises over £1 million almost immediately.
It's incredible. And today, that foundation has nearly 100 direct scholars across 35 countries. Its grant programs have reached over 1,500 people on 6 continents.
Which is just, it reframes the whole concept of legacy for me. We usually talk about legacy like it's, I don't know, a bronze statue in a park, right?
Right, exactly.
You build it, you leave it there, and people admire it, but it doesn't actually do anything. Lilian's point makes me realize Gérard's legacy is more like a moving train.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's picking up passengers, laying down new tracks, and gaining speed long after the conductor has left the station.
That distinction between being just admired and actually being carried forward is vital. Admiration dies the moment people stop talking about you.
Right.
But when your methods are carried forward, they harden into a culture. And to understand how that culture actually alters a life, we really need to look at the people boarding that train.
Let's do that. Let's look at Layla Kelleran. Because if the foundation is fundamentally changing who gets to define luxury, Layla is the perfect example of that shift.
She really is.
She's one of the 2 2025 recipients of the Barcavella Golden Vines Master of Wine Scholarship.
And just for context, Barcavella is one of Portugal's most iconic, rarest wines. So their backing of this scholarship is a massive signal of prestige.
Huge. But Layla's path to that prestige is defined by sheer survival. She was born in Tehran to an Iranian father and a British mother.
Yeah, when she was just 4 years old, a neighboring house was bombed. She literally spent the night terrified, hiding under a kitchen table.
Oh, wow.
Her family had to flee the country on a commercial plane that was actively being escorted by Iraqi fighter jets.
Because of threats that it would be shot down.
Exactly.
And you would think arriving in the UK would be the end of the struggle. But she lands in Manchester and is immediately subjected to brutal bullying because of her heritage.
Right, especially after 9/11. The racism intensified so much around her Persian surname that she eventually took her mother's maiden name just to try and blend in.
It's awful. And then she starts studying law, realizes she hates it, and moves to Naples without speaking a word of Italian to take this grueling chef's course.
Where, as she tells Lilian, she nearly chopped her fingers off multiple times.
Right. And that physical danger in the kitchen is actually what pushed her toward wine. It required the same sensory dedication, but with fewer sharp blades.
Exactly. So she sets her sights on the Master of Wine program. But we have to break down why this is such a colossal hurdle.
Right.
The MW program isn't just a difficult test. It is an institutional gatekeeper. There are fewer than 300 Masters of Wine in the entire world.
That's a tiny number.
In some years, only 3 people globally pass the exam. And the financial toll is just staggering. It costs around £5,500 just for the exam fees.
And didn't Layla pay that fee twice without even getting to sit for the test?
Yes. The first time, COVID-19 canceled it. The second time, her father suffered a severe medical emergency during exam week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So for someone who calls herself a Mancunian commoner, losing over £10,000 on canceled exams is a career-ending financial blow. It's the kind of barrier deliberately designed to keep people without generational wealth out of the industry.
But, okay, this raises a fundamental question, and I want to play devil's advocate for just a second.
Sure, go for it.
I'm looking at this from the perspective of someone outside the industry. We are talking about wine.
Right.
It is, by definition, a luxury beverage. When there are global crises, housing shortages, medical research, clean water, why does funding someone's Master of Wine degree matter on a systemic level?
That's a really fair question. If you look at it purely as funding a beverage certification, it doesn't.
Right.
But if you look at it through the lens Lilian provides, it is about dismantling entrenched socioeconomic power structures.
Okay, say more about that.
Historically, high-end industries, whether it's fine wine, high fashion, elite finance, they operate as closed loops. They rely entirely on who you know and who your parents are.
Right, the velvet rope.
Exactly. What the foundation does is act as a skeleton key. They find people with immense drive and raw talent who are locked out by financial and social walls, and they simply remove the wall.
So it's not really about the wine at all. It's about changing who gets to sit at the head of the table.
Precisely. When Layla, backed by this scholarship, walks into Chateau Lafite Rothschild in Bordeaux, which is a space that rarely opens its doors to anyone without a title or a massive fortune, she's changing the DNA of who gets to be a gatekeeper in the future.
That makes complete sense. And you see that exact same disruptive spark in the other 2025 Barkavella recipient, Sarah Karamchuk.
Oh, definitely. Talk about an unexpected pivot. Sarah is a Ukrainian with a PhD in chemistry.
Right, and her background is rooted in this intense scientific isolation. She spent years in a lab successfully publishing research, but she felt entirely disconnected from humanity.
Yeah, she wanted her chemistry to improve lives, but she never actually got to see the faces of the people she was supposedly helping.
So post-COVID, she completely pivots and tries working as a chef in a Michelin star restaurant.
Which just trades one kind of isolation for another, honestly.
Exactly. She's working these punishing 18-hour days. She's witnessing food waste and sustainability violations that totally offend her scientific background, and she's still trapped in the back of the house.
Until she finally realizes wine is the ultimate synthesis. It requires the precision of chemistry, the understanding of biology, and most importantly, it requires human connection.
And her academic discipline is just staggering. She tackled the WSET diploma, which is the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, essentially the global passport for serious wine professionals, and she passed it in 1 year.
Which is wild, because that program is designed to take 2 years of grueling study. And she just compressed it.
But the detail from Lilian's interview that really anchors Sarah's story in reality is the environment she's studying in. Lilian notes that during their Zoom call, Sarah's phone was constantly vibrating with air raid alerts from Kiev.
It's such a profound juxtaposition. Sarah is in London, engaging with this elite, highly refined curriculum, while her mother is back in Ukraine, living without electricity for half the day with drones flying overhead.
Wow.
Sarah's pursuit of this title isn't just about personal ambition. It's about becoming a Ukrainian wine ambassador. It's about forcing global representation for a country currently fighting for its survival.
And this actually brings up one of the key leadership lessons Lilian highlights. Misalignment is constructive data.
Yes.
Because a lot of corporate leaders would look at Sarah, someone who quit a PhD program, and then quit a Michelin star kitchen, and label her a failure or like a flight risk.
But Lilian argues that expertise is entirely useless if it is applied in the wrong environment. Your organization is likely full of brilliant people who are struggling, simply because they are in the wrong roles for the right reasons.
So true.
Sarah wasn't failing. She was misaligned. A truly effective leader doesn't punish that misalignment. They use it as data to help that person find their correct fit.
And the foundation is essentially identifying that misaligned brilliance and giving it a home. And they aren't just doing this for individuals in established European markets.
No, they are literally building the stage itself in places where it has never existed.
Right. Let's move from the testing rooms of London to the roof of the world. The Himalayas in Bhutan.
This is where the scope of the Foundation's work becomes almost unfathomable. We have to introduce Michael Juergens and Anne Cross.
The co-founders of the Bhutan Wine Company.
Yes, and Michael's energy alone is incredible. When Lilian met him in Miami, he was walking around in a kilt, sporting a mohawk, and covered in tattoos.
I love that. His personal motto is literally, I want to do epic shit with cool people.
Which perfectly explains how a tourist trip turned into an agricultural revolution. He and Anne went to Bhutan simply to run a marathon.
Naturally.
But Michael, who managed a massive global wine consulting practice, looked at this lush, untouched landscape and asked the obvious question, where are the vineyards?
And when he was told there were none, his immediate response wasn't, oh, what a shame. It was, let's partner with the Bhutanese government and invent an industry from scratch.
The viticultural audacity of what they are attempting really cannot be overstated here.
Because there's no data, right?
Zero. There is no historical or scientific record of what grape varieties can survive at these altitudes in Bhutan. They're experimenting by planting 17 different grape varieties across elevations that range from 500 feet to a staggering 25,000 feet.
25,000 feet, that's insane.
Right now, they have active plantings up to 8,200 feet. You are dealing with intense UV exposure, dramatic temperature shifts, completely untested soil. It is the absolute Wild West of agriculture.
But here's the bottleneck, right?
Yeah.
You can miraculously grow grapes at 8,000 feet. But if no one in the country knows how to harvest, ferment, or taste them, you just have a pile of rotting fruit.
Exactly.
And that is where the Gérard Basset Foundation steps in. They provided a grant to build a localized wine education infrastructure.
Yeah, Michael and Ann used that grant to run WSET Level 1 classes for 60 local people. And to put the economic barrier in perspective, the standard fee for that course, which might seem manageable to a professional in New York, is equivalent to a month and a half of salary for the average person in Bhutan.
Wow. So without the foundation, that education is literally mathematically impossible to access.
Exactly. And their goal now is to upskill 100 people every single year. As Ann Cross explained to Lilian, they aren't just trying to launch a wine brand. They are trying to terraform an entire economy.
Which perfectly illustrates Lilian's next C-suite leadership lesson. The best leaders build for a future they won't live to see.
Yeah, Michael explicitly describes the Bhutan vineyard as a 50-year project. He knows he will likely not be alive to see the full, mature realization of what he is planting today.
That is the ultimate counter-narrative to modern corporate culture, isn't it? Where everything is driven by quarterly earnings and immediate credit.
It really is.
True leadership immortality is planting an orchard when you know you will never get to eat the apples.
It requires a profound shift in ego. You are building a foundation for memory lived in service to the greater good rather than immediate personal gain.
And that ties directly into Lilian's final and perhaps most important leadership lesson from the article. Compassion as a competitive advantage.
Oh, the Coca-Cola story.
Yes. I think about the story Romanet shared about his father, Gérard. He said that to be a great sommelier, you have to love people far more than you love wine. Gérard believed that if a customer orders the rarest, most expensive Bordeaux on the menu and then asks you to mix it 50-50 with Coca-Cola,
Which would make most wine snobs pass out.
exactly. But you do not scoff at them, you don't lecture them on tannins, you simply ask, do you want diet or full fat?
That anecdote is brilliant because it exposes the flaw in so many luxury business models. Industries lose relevance when they prioritize their own rigidity and snobbery over the customer's experience.
Yeah.
The wine is secondary. The primary goal is making the person across from you feel seen, respected, and satisfied. When a leader prioritizes curiosity and compassion over gatekeeping, they unlock an unparalleled level of brand loyalty.
Looking at all of these lessons, legacy as methodology, utilizing misalignment, building for an unseen future, and leveraging compassion, it is so clear why Lilian's background in emotional marketing makes her the perfect person to decode the story. It actually reminds me of the visual branding of her own agency. We saw in the sources that her logo is this striking purple and red butterfly, paired with the tagline, "When you know, it's time for more."
That symbolism is incredibly fitting for everything we've discussed today. A butterfly represents metamorphosis, you know, the refusal to remain in the state you were born into.
Because every single person we've talked about in this deep dive recognized when it was time for more. Gérard knew it was time for more than just being a sommelier. He became a global mentor.
Yeah.
Layla and Sarah knew it was time for more than the trauma and isolation of their pasts. Michael and Ann looked at a mountain range and knew it was time for more than just a marathon.
They all refused to be constrained by the environments they inherited,
Yeah.
and the foundation basically acts as the chrysalis that allows that metamorphosis to happen on a global scale.
It's just a breathtaking scope. We started with a man who stumbled into hospitality to pay his bills and ended up with a movement that is empowering survivors of war in Kyiv, breaking class ceilings in Manchester, and literally planting the seeds of a new economy on the slopes of the Himalayas.
It proves that true luxury isn't defined by who you can keep out. It is defined by your power to invite people in.
Perfectly said. Which is exactly why you need to engage with the source material directly. To read Lilian's full article and really absorb these leadership frameworks, head over to Forbes.
Definitely do that.
And if you want to dive deeper into her brilliant analysis on how the luxury industry actually operates, you absolutely need to visit her website at www.lilianraji.com.
Yeah, her insights there are fantastic.
Make sure to connect with her on LinkedIn and follow her on Instagram and YouTube. Her insights will fundamentally change how you view your own career and the legacy you are building.
She provides such an essential lens for anyone who wants to understand the hidden architecture of human connection within the business world.
She really does.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Mm-hmm.
Gérard Basset used his mastery, his titles, and his sheer force of will to unlock doors for people who couldn't even reach the handle.
Right.
So take a hard look at your own life right now. Look at the power, the specialized knowledge, or the network access you currently hold. Think about the spaces you navigate every day with ease, spaces that might feel like an impenetrable, exclusive Miami gala to someone else.
Yeah.
Whose door are you uniquely positioned to unlock today?